So at the time of this recording, we are in the depths of one of the largest banking crises in American history, believe it or not. The largest banking crisis since probably 2008 has taken place. Two of them have taken place in the last 90 days, 60 to 90 days. And that has been a result of economic factors and systemic risks that have kicked in and put a lot of pressure on regional banks in particular, mid to regional sized banks. We're going to cover why Navy Federal Credit Union is likely going to be the best financial institution for you to evade this banking crisis and still level up your finances and your banking relationships at one time in this video. This is JP from Blueprint for Prosperity. We're not going to waste no time. We're going to get right into it. So what has been going on with a lot of these banks is the Federal Reserve has been increasing the Fed's funds rate and has put pressure on various mechanisms in the backdrop of these banks' investments of their depositors' capital. What's going on is it's had a lot of impact on the bond markets, which a lot of banks have been invested in with their depositors' money. And when certain chains of events have gone down in recent times that have forced these banks to have to retrieve that money out of the bond market and put it back in flow for their depositors to get access on, because their depositors started to run on them because of certain things going on in the stock market or certain economic news or financial news being released by these regional banks. So showing that, that they're at risk or they're not showing a certain profit, something's going wrong that has made depositors and investors in those banks leery and want to get their money out of there. Well, these banks have had to pull that money out of the bond market short at losses to return that money to their depositors. And that in itself has largely caused some very serious systemic issues with banks. Several reasonable sized banks have collapsed. That all having been said, this video is about, now that you know that there's a banking crisis and you have a little bit of context on where that banking crisis sources from and where it's going to continue to source from, you also need to know that there's a lending crisis transpiring because of the banking crisis. It's a byproduct, meaning that because banks are becoming more unstable, they are forced to be more careful who they lend their money to, because they can't afford to take the same losses that they did in the past or take the same risk they did in the past. So they're not going to stop lending. But if you aren't a prime borrower, then you're going to get pinched out when it comes to lending. A lot of people who are on the fence that were getting access to credit cards or high limit credit cards or auto loans or mortgages or business funding, all of that and more, commercial lending is going to get torn to pieces in a lot of cases, because that's a very regional bank dependent lending market. All of that is going to get squeezed. If you don't have strong financials, great credit, really good credit, you are going to struggle to get your hands on capital. All of that having been said, where does Navy Federal fit in this? Why am I saying that Navy Federal will highly likely be the mecca to be in for the foreseeable future as a financial institution to continue to secure your deposits and to continue to actually grow, when it comes to lending, banking relationship banking, borrowing, all of that. When it comes to those things, Navy Federal is going to be king, is going to be supreme. Why? Number one, it's a credit union, not a for-profit institution. I just mentioned that the banking crisis is because these banks are for-profit institutions and they have investors and shareholders that they have to serve first. So that means that you as a depositor, you as a member of their bank are towards the bottom of the food chain. They have people who are the lifeblood of their company or their institution that they have to serve first. When systemic risk kicks in, investment risk kicks in, these people start to have issues where these investors get nervous and pull their money out. Or, these investors are demanding the bank to make certain moves to pad their pockets or to satisfy their needs at your expense as a depositor. Then you have what transpires with these banks. They collapse and the depositors get left holding the bag if FDIC can't cover it or chooses not to cover it. So Navy Federal being a credit union, they're not for profit. They are for their members. all credit unions reinvest their earnings back into their members. Their members are the shareholders, if you will. They're the owners of that institution. So when Navy Federal is profitable, when they are in motion, then they're putting the majority of that money that's not needed to keep the lights on and pay their employees and, blah, blah, blah. All of the excess capital is largely going back into their members. So that means that there's not the same systemic risk. There's not investment risk. There's not the same component because that money is used. The money flowing through Navy Federal is used totally different and is reinvested back in the members. That puts you as the member higher in the food chain. That is number one. Number two, they are the largest financial credit union in the United States. So not only are they a credit union, but the next big thing is small and regional banks are the ones feeling this crunch. Larger commercial banks are the ones benefiting from it at the moment. So what that means is these larger institutions are more sound and more, you as a depositor, me as a depositor feel more comfortable putting our money in larger institutions that are either less likely to fail or highly likely to be backed up by the government if they do, because they're too big to fail. Hope that made sense. So them being not only a credit union, but number two, being the largest credit union makes them more attractive because they're large, they're stable, and their business model is totally different. They're all about you as the member. Number three, they are still FDIC insured. That's right. So even with the fact that they're a credit union and they're not subject to the same risk or the same circumstances of this banking crisis, they're the largest credit union. So that means that they're systematically sound, they're large, and that if something were to go wrong and they were at a threat, they would highly likely get a lot of support from the government. FDIC insured still. So that means that you still have that $250,000 per depositor, per certain account type threshold of security with Navy Federal on top of the other 2 points that I made. Number four, Navy Federal, because they're a credit union, because they are able to reinvest back into their members and don't have shareholders to take care of, still are going to have some of the most diverse product pools available. On top of them being a credit union, the largest credit union, FDIC insured still, they're still going to bring you some of the best rates on lending products, the best rates on deposit products, and some of the most diverse products in the marketplace for banks and institutions. This is wonderful. That means you have the ability to put your savings, checking, direct deposit, long-term savings, investing, IRAs, motorcycle loan, car loan, mortgages. They have the personal loans, secured credit cards. They have the gambit. They have it all, almost all of it. They have it all. This is a beautiful thing. You can literally level up your finances if you know what you're doing and know how to navigate that institution and use these financial products to your benefit. You can literally level up your finances with one institution. You never have to leave Navy Federal if you wanted to. You can build your credit from scratch, save effectively, invest, get insurance, get all the lending products that you would need. In most cases, you literally can do all of that without having to leave one institution. That is phenomenal, especially during a banking crisis, especially at a time where banks are unstable, lending getting tight. Navy Federal is not going to be subject to the majority of those risks and limitations. It's a beautiful thing. I actually spoke with a representative from Navy Federal, particularly probably a licensed loan officer there, about a particular home lending product that they have. I was going to ask her the DTI on that particular loan product. And she came back to me and said, well, we don't actually have a hard set DTI limit. Because we're a credit union, we are able to gauge each individual client's financial portfolio and determine the DTI per loan. That is outstanding. That is absolutely outstanding. Because what that basically means is that you as an individual borrower, as an individual member, get a fair shot at the best that's available for you. You are not getting the cookie cutter experience that larger banks are forced to give you because they have to follow a certain business model. It's absolutely insane the value that Navy Federal as an institution can offer. And it's most credit unions I want to encourage. But Navy Federal is special because they are the largest credit union. And the fact that they are able to set so many of their own rules and terms around the needs of their members is incredible. So I wanted to bring this video to you because there's so much hype around a banking crisis. I'm covering the banking crisis on a regular basis, as well as other prominent and financial YouTubers and content creators in the regular news. Not many people are offering solutions, where to go. And honestly, larger banks are okay, but a lot of what I just read to you about Navy Federal is not available at these larger institutions. They're not going to pay you great rates. They're not going to have a diverse product lineup. You're not going to be a priority in comparison to their shareholders and their overall business model. It doesn't mean you can't have a positive experience. I'm a fan of commercial banks for certain things. But when it comes to an overall one-stop shop institution, it is hard as hell to beat Navy Federal right now. If you catch this video well after this banking crisis has settled, Navy Federal is probably still going to be one of the best places to be. But if you're catching this video in the midst of this banking crisis, as of the time of this recording, it's May 2023, and it's likely going to finish out through 2023, possibly into 2024. I'm telling you right now, if you can get into Navy Federal or do your research on some of the next, maybe I'll cover some videos on some of the next larger, solid financial institutions that you can get into without those restrictions that Navy Federal has for getting into its institution. Find other solid credit unions that meet similar guidelines to what I just covered in this video, because they're going to be a great place to be in the near future. Banking has to keep going, and there's still a center hub of you elevating your finances. I promote that deeply on this channel. I'm all about relationship banking. Extremely hard to get wealthy without going through the banking system and the lending system. And I'm telling you right now that credit unions are going to be golden in the near future, right now and in the near future. Thank y'all for tuning in. I know this content was valuable for you. Drop your comments down below. All you Navy Federal fans out there, lovers, members, comment down below. Let us know what your experience has been. And if you're looking to get into Navy Federal, comment down below so we can try to see if we can help you legitimately get into Navy Federal and take advantage of these amazing benefits. I enjoy bringing you this content. To all my pioneers out there, I want you to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.
This is JP from Blueprint for Prosperity Network, a channel dedicated to helping you increase your net worth through relationship banking, maximizing your borrowing capacity, the proper use of life insurance, and the ownership of real estate. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm uploading content on a daily basis to help you customize your blueprint for prosperity.